Everyone, Taxman here for the grand finale, the final episode of the Six-Sided Podcast. This one will be kind of bittersweet for me. Obviously, it's been kind of a blast. Not kind of a blast. It's been a complete blast doing this program for you guys and with you guys throughout the last year and change. So just wanted to wrap things up on a high note. Figure it's better than that than the alternative. So once again, I kind of spoke some of this. I see there's a big glare in the back. I'm going to try and change this. Yeah, there we go. I kind of spoke on some of this during the 1 year episode. And so some of this might be a rehash, but we'll just have fun with it anyways and go from there. So unbelievably, 1 year of the Six-Sided Podcast came and went in January of 2019. Originally, I had started this to follow the new regime of Impact Wrestling. That would be the Scott D'Amore, Don Callis, Ed Nordholm kind of, I've called them the triad, the three-headed dragon. There's multiple names for them, but I wanted to see what they were going to do with the company, what directions they would take, what improvements they would make, talent they would sign, et cetera, et cetera. And I have to say, throughout the course of my doing the program first off and also being more invested in watching the program, I have to say that I've been fairly impressed with the results that we have seen from this new regime. So before I get into anything else, just have to say for the final time, this podcast is a collaboration and a production of the Pulse Podcasting Network, as well as WrestlingWithWrestling.com. Once again, WrestlingWithWrestling.com is the website for all of your wrestling-related news, interviews, whatever. If it's wrestling, any type of wrestling, whether it's WWE, Impact, Noah, Stardom, whatever, somebody's reporting on it. Obviously, for myself, the Impact part of it is what I focused on mostly, and there's also Robert Ferrara Does Wrestling and the guys from the Clock Cleaners podcast who will definitely pick up my slack in regards to that, although there's been quite a bit of slack over the last couple of months, as you guys have noticed, I'm sure, by my output of shows. Once again, I can't thank the people at Pulse Podcast Network enough. They've been tremendous with me, just helping me grow in terms of a platform and just getting me out there, because they do a whole lot of football and basketball. They have a couple other wrestling podcasts. They have a lot of pop culture podcasts. I met a lot of great people through that, and I'm very happy with what I was able to contribute with them and what they were able to contribute to me as well. So for anybody joining the program tonight, we will have the chat room live and open. So please make sure you say hello in the chat room. And we'll just talk some Impact Wrestling. We'll chat the life of the show that was the Six-Sided Podcast, rest in peace, as it were. And just kind of my general thoughts, I guess, on what it was like to do the program and what I'm looking forward to in the future. So once again, if you guys are in the room, wait a minute, Robert's in the room already. I gotta see what Robert said here. Oh goodness. Take your shirt off. Yes, Robert, it's for real. Believe it or not. Yeah, we've reached the end of the Six-Sided Podcast. The Luke Mazer, take your shirt off. Maybe at the end of the show, we'll see what happens. By the way, I never did say big shout out to Luke Mazer as well as the rest of the Spankies crew. I meant to say that, oh my God, back in January around Rumble season. And just shows what a complete jerk off I am. And I just didn't do any programs, and I totally forgot about it on the 1 year anniversary show. So I apologize profusely for that. We have Mazer, Hollywood Southern Dandy, Proco, just the whole crew, Perry, everybody else. Yeah, but Mazer himself, because, and by the way, it was tremendous when you, and Mazer I'm referring to here, got good old Choppy Chop himself there. I can't think of his name because he's such a fucking goof. the guy who blocked me on Twitter, anyways. The butcher, Brutus of Barbie Beefcake, whatever the fuck his name is. God, fuck that guy. Anyways, but when you got him going on Twitter, he's such a fucking rube. We didn't have no idea what was going on. But anyways, tremendous. Mazer, there's your shout out. Yeah, Brutus, there it is. Yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck you, Brutus. I can say whatever the fuck I want now because the program's coming to an end. Hey, maybe I'll air out some dirty laundry here. Who knows? Who knows what direction this thing's going to go? I know for sure I will wrap it up before the start of tonight's episode of Impact Wrestling, because like you guys, I'm very much looking forward to watching that one. So, which once again was the whole premise of doing this show itself, was to cover Impact Wrestling. Like I touched on, the whole part of it for me was to start with the new regime to see what they were going to do with the product. I found myself, and maybe I'm the only one who did this, but I kind of found myself being more invested. I paid attention a little bit more to the nuances with the program, especially when I was talking to guys like Kyle and Trent especially because he's on the production side. I never really cared before in the past, about production quality and things like, the ring noise and the sound of the crowd and, video packages and all that. I liked them. I was never as invested in them as I was after talking to guys like Trent and just seeing how much goes into producing one of these and then noticing the production values kind of increasing, and especially the video packages increasing value-wise with Impact Wrestling throughout this whole year that this regime has been in power. So if I've gotten anything out of this experience in terms of watching wrestling, it's been that. It's being able to better appreciate things like production, like the finer points, like commentary. God knows the commentary has improved big time this year with Don Callis, we'll say, kind of leading Josh Matthews along. Don Callis, obviously one of the best in the game in terms of color commentary. And I always felt like Josh could have been good if he would have stopped doing his whole like Jim Ross pseudo impersonation. It wasn't good. It was never good. Like that 2016 to like 2017 where he was trying to do the heel thing, but still trying to do the Jim Ross thing. It never really worked. Pope, when he was there, kind of tried to get him off of that. It never really worked. I really think that they had hit a home run this year with Don and Josh Matthews on commentary. Now that I've said all that, we wouldn't be having this final show if you said hi. You guys, yeah, it's true. It is true, actually. If I didn't say hi, we wouldn't be having this final show, but we are anyways. So, honestly, the whole idea behind the show and the reason that I really enjoyed doing it, I wanted it to be accessible to anybody, right? So a lot of you know that, or would hear, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. I would always start the show off by saying, if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to be on it, if you have something to say, email me, Twitter me, whatever. There's always a way to get on the show. I've had multiple guests on the show, and I had a few people who would always ask me, hey, how come you're not getting, wrestler X on the show? Or how come you are not trying to get a promoter on the show? Or how come you're not doing this? That was never my original intent with the show. The whole reason I did this show was to have just people like me, right? Impact Wrestling fans who were passionate about the product, who wanted their voice heard, who wanted to have a say and have a voice and have a platform to be heard for all intents and purposes. That was the reason for it. That's why every show that I put it out there that I wanted somebody else to join the show. The reason for was simply that I wanted the people like me to have a voice, and thankfully a lot of you paid attention, a lot of you listened, and it's incredible that some jabron from Winnipeg would have over 30,000 between YouTube and streams and whatever, listens, views, everything, whatever metric you want to measure it. It's incredible. And I know maybe like 30,000 is like a small number compared to whatever big wig markets or big wig channels or whatever. I'm not really concerned with that. I just wanted to try to do something different that was well received by the people who enjoyed it. And to me, it seemed like the people who enjoyed it immensely. And the people who I had on the program, I had a ton of fun with. And there's been loads of people that I had on the program. Robert, who's in the chat room right now. Jimmy, who just joined the chat room. I see I had Jenna on twice. I had Steven. Like, what's crazy for me is that I was able to talk to people from across Canada, my country. I was able to talk to people from across the United States, guys like Kyle and Trent, Robert from Puerto Rico. You go across the pond. I was able to talk to Steven from out in Britain. I was able to talk to the guys from Just Because Wrestling out in Cork, Ireland. Like, it's incredible just how this little me on a whim putting myself out there, episode 1, which was fucking awful. I went back and listened to it and I'm like, oh God. But it's one of those things, right? If you don't do it, if you don't start, you never know how to get better. And I started with the first episode. It was rocky. And took a long way and a long time for me to get my footing and feel comfortable with everything. And having guests on it really started. And actually, the first guest I ever had on the show was Hollywood Southern Dandy, one of very good friend of mine. I see Anar and Rufal Marin in the chat room. He's been a day oneer, as it were, as a lot of you have been, and for that I'm very much appreciated. Once again, anything you guys throw in the comments, anything you want to chat about Impact Wrestling wise, make sure you throw it in there. Hi Bicky, I see you in there too as well. End of an era, he says. Yeah, it is too, to a point, I guess. I know that there's a lot of Impact Wrestling podcasters. I never see, this is funny too, because I never really wanted to picture myself as a podcaster. I guess in the end, I ended up being that. I just wanted to, talk Impact Wrestling. And that's what I got to do for a year and, a few months. And I really enjoyed doing it. And it's funny. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get into, or how much you will actually enjoy doing something, or how much you would actually get out of it. And for myself, the biggest takeaway for me is just the response of like passionate Impact Wrestling fans. And I'm not just talking about the ones who were on the show. I'm also talking about the ones who would interact on YouTube, who I'd go back and forth with on Twitter, even the trolls. They say you never made it until you got a couple of trolls, and Lord knows I had a couple of those fuckers I had to slay on goddamn Twitter. But in reality, if I was not putting out something that people would enjoy, then there wouldn't be people that despise it either, I suppose. That's one way to look at it. So that's the biggest takeaway for me, is just how much interaction I was able to actually get. Once again, just being this guy from Winnipeg who had never done anything like this before. And I was just absolutely blown away. So if there's one takeaway I'm getting from this whole experience, it's that. And for that, I will forever be grateful. Jimmy, what does Jimmy have to say? Gonna say the best moment of this podcast had to be the Bloody Becky quote by me. It's actually true. And if anybody was sleeping on that episode, shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. Jimmy and Jenna and myself had talked about the whole Nia Jax, Becky Lynch incident, and Jimmy with the quote of the year, in my opinion, Bloody Becky gets my dick hard. Oh my fucking! I still can't believe when that's one of those things that happens on a live mic, and you're like, I was shocked. I was sitting there like, what the fuck did you just say? And in that split second, I'm like, oh my God, he actually just said it. And then both Jenna and me just burst out laughing, because like, what else can you do with something like that? And it was so spot on, right? But like, it's the funniest thing. That's another thing. I never thought I would have so much fun doing this. I didn't want to be a real serious guy, and I never wanted to be one of these, news. I don't even know what the phrase is. One of these people who just does news stories and reports only the news about Impact Wrestling, and it's very cut, dry, boring, whatever. I never wanted to be that either. I just wanted to be somebody who I thought you guys would find entertaining, which happens to be myself in general. There's no act here. I know I used the name Taxman on this, and that's a whole other story for perhaps a whole other program one time. But honestly, with the just me being genuinely me, I think on the program and being accepted as that by all of you is the biggest, one of the biggest things for me. It's been a ton of fun. And it is kind of, like I said at the start of the show, it's bittersweet to kind of end it off right now. But I'm one of these people who, if I can't give 100% on something, whether it's work or it's home life or it's whatever, then I can't do it. You know what I mean? I have to be able to give it my all, to have my heart in it 100%, to do things up to my standard. And I really don't think that I was able to, especially in the last, oh my God, 3 months, been able to keep the standard that I've held myself to in terms of producing a quality program. Because let's be honest, there's only 24 hours in a day. And the fact that, 100 or 200 or 1,000 or whatever people every episode would listen and invest that 45 minutes to an hour and a half to sometimes longer, depending on who the guest was, it's incredible. It was such a humbling experience for me. And it further affirmed for me the fact that, if I can't put out my best, then maybe it's time to just say goodbye. And I was going back and forth with Andre today from Wrestling with Wrestling. That's Andre Corbeil. He's the, AEW makes up names for everything. So he's the CEO, the CCO, the junior vice president, the executive vice president. He's fucking everything. But anyways, and we were going back and forth a little bit, and he was saying that anytime that I get my creative juices going, that I'm welcome back on wrestlingwithwrestling.com, which I very much appreciated. It's one of those things where I'm sure once I'm out, it'll be a week or 2 weeks or a month, or might go by, and maybe I want to get the itch to do it again. But in terms of the Six Sided Podcast being a weekly episodic Impact Wrestling review show, that is it. We are saying adios, bienvenue, whatever. That's actually French for hello, I believe. But anyways, you get what I'm saying, right? That part of it is just past its time, and rightfully so to a point. What I'm not opposed to is, and before I speak on that, I should say that I'm going to be guesting on a couple of projects. And funny enough, we have our first call-in ever, because this has never been a call-in show. Hello, caller. You're on the line with the Six Sided Podcast.
Hi, Taxman. First-time caller, long-time listener. I just wanted to know what direction you think Impact will be going into for 2019 and into the future with the upcoming competition that is coming in May as the AEW. Can AEW maintain this momentum and knock down Impact to 3, or do you think it's going to be a back-and-forth battle? Thanks.
Very good question from Hollywood Southern Dandy, the first ever and I suppose only call-in show, or caller into the show, I should say. So what I see in 2019, more of the same. You're seeing a lot of new events being promoted and put together. Actually, there's 4 that are going to be in effect in April. United We Stand, we know that's the big one, but there's 3 other ones, including a show for the troops. They'll correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe that is in April, but you're just seeing more of the same of Impact Wrestling, building the brand, getting out there, bringing their product to markets who want the product. I always said the biggest thing that they needed to do was get out of the dead zone and get this show into places that wanted to see it, right? That's why you see them going now back to Windsor. They're going back to Toronto. They've done Vegas twice now. They've done Mexico twice. These are places, venues, and people who want to watch Impact Wrestling. So why would you not go on the road and bring Impact Wrestling to the people who want to see it? Now, the second part of the question that he asked is in regards to their standing with AEW. Now, this has been a big bone of contention for goddamn every wrestling fan on Twitter and the internet and whatever. Is AEW automatically inserted as the number 2 company right now? So I want to preface this by saying, for myself, Impact Wrestling is the number 2. If we're going by this way, which I think that whole ranking, whatever system, is flawed and stupid anyways, but if you're going with that, Impact Wrestling is 2, Ring of Honor is 3, and MLW, sorry, I didn't mean to mispronounce that, is 4. And that is simply based on household reach, number of weekly viewers, and essentially the product that they're putting out, as well as amount of live shows that are being produced from the companies. So, a lot of people will debate back and forth Ring of Honor, if they're 2, 3, whatever. That's up for debate. I'm not really getting into that. But for anybody to come out and say that AEW is the de facto number 2 promotion in North America, it can't be. And there's a few reasons for that. So number one, the biggest one is, what is it? What is AEW? Yes, we've heard the mantra of, wrestlers are all going to be paid equally. And then that was backtracked on, right? We've heard that they're going to have a big TV deal. Now they've kind of backtracked on that. We've heard that they are going to plan multiple events. They've kind of backed off on that. Double or Nothing is obviously coming up in May. That's going to be a big telltale sign for me of the direction of the company. But what are they? Until this show happens in May, and until we get further clarification of what this company, AEW, actually is, I don't know how anybody can classify them as anything sort of a fringe independent wrestling promotion until they establish they have the fan base. And I also use that in quotation marks because I feel like they have the fan base from the elite, and they have the fan base from fans who are diehard supporters of certain talents that they've signed, guys like Joey Janela or guys like Cody or whatever. Robert Does Wrestling, perfect example right here. He just says AEW is a t-shirt company. It's true. AEW is what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a niche because it's not. It's like a pop culture irregularity, right? Normally something appears and then it catches on and then it takes off or dies a quick death from there. This is something where it's caught on without actually having started anything. There's no infrastructure for the company. There's no set timetables for how talent is supposed to work. There's so much ambiguity with this company. It's almost impossible for anybody to sit back and say that in 2019 or goddamn even 2020 that they're going to be major players in professional wrestling. I can't see it. Maybe I'm missing something in the grand scheme of things, and I'm sure one of Jimmy's work rate nerds, as he calls them, would be quick to correct me. But the reality is, without even the terrible television deal of Pursuit, which, by the way, it doesn't matter, and I've covered this ad nauseum 1,000 times on this program, Impact Wrestling's domestic television deal is balls. Everybody knows it. But their international deals are where they make their money, and Impact Wrestling has always made more, been much more profitable, and had much more of a footprint internationally than they've ever had on the domestic United States market. Period. De facto, that's the reality of it. So if you want to even look at this thing in a broader spectrum, so AEW has their show on, it's in May. I don't remember the exact date. Double or Nothing. So that show will be shown on Fight TV, I'm sure. How many buys are they going to get? Debatable. You would hope that they would at least match what they did for All In, although I feel like a lot of people who bought All In bought it for the idea, right? Not necessarily for the show that was being produced or the talent on the show. They bought it as, hey, this is some rebel idea. These guys are going on their own. They're doing their thing. Are you going to be able to get that same level of investment from people not attending the show to be able to buy that on Fight and make your money that way? Very tough, and it's going to be especially tough in international markets where you're dealing with time zones and things of that nature. And that's where some sort of a streaming or network platform helps you. So that's why you see things like Impact Wrestling when they air pay-per-views. I believe it's 2 weeks later, and Steven will probably correct me, 2 or 3 weeks later in the UK, they will air the pay-per-view on 5 Spike, for example. Or in Mexico on, I believe the channel's called Supermax 52. Don't quote me on that because I'm not familiar with the actual channel name. But these are ways that you keep the international audience involved, right? And I know that everybody's going to, quick to say, oh, yeah, well, the North American fans stay up and watch New Japan pay-per-views, which is true because I've done it as well. I catch Dominion, I try and catch every year live. For sure, Wrestle Kingdom I watch every year. And New Year's Dash, I usually have streaming at work on the app on my phone. But the amount of North American fans that do that, though, obviously would pale in comparison to anything that you would ever get from Japan. Conversely, anything that you're going to get from a North American viewing audience for AEW is going to pale in comparison for the rest of the established wrestling international market. Now, can they capitalize on solely a North American base? We'll see. But where do you go from Double or Nothing? Do you do it as a quarterly pay-per-view and that's your schedule? So every 4 months or every 3 months you would have a pay-per-view, but then you don't have your build. Even now you're seeing the problem with they're announcing matches, but what's the build? What draws me as a fan to watch this match other than the performance in the match? Obviously, everybody wants to see shit like the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers because the Lucha Brothers are, to be quite frank, one of the hottest tag teams in the professional wrestling world right now. Who wouldn't want to see them wrestle? But what is the reason to draw me to watch that match? What is the reason to draw me to watch, Jericho and Omega 2, other than their same, pull apart conference thing that they did at New Japan? It's almost the same thing. But what's going to draw me to watch that? What's going to draw me to watch the Adam Page and I believe he's facing Neville match? Like all of these wheels are set in motion, but there's not that connecting factor. There's not that storyline. And I know some of it's done on social media and some of it's done on Being the Elite, but there's not a weekly rehash or a weekly recap or a weekly promotion of what's going on with these feuds and why you, the fan, why me, the fan, should be invested in watching this. Arnolfo Marin, where can I donate to your Patreon so I can buy you some shirt sleeves? That's tremendous. I realize that I wear a tank quite often. Honestly, I'm very gross when I come home from work, is to be perfectly blunt, is what it is. So I wear basically the most relaxing clothes I possibly can at home because I don't have the luxury of coming home from work and taking a shower because I have the kids. I got to deal with the kids and make dinner and then put them to bed and, do whatever else. And by the time you realize anything, it's 10 o'clock at night and it's time for bed. I know I sound like I'm old. I'm only 33 though, but like that's just the reality of Taxman want to show his guns. Yeah, there. Yeah. There's a little Brian Cage, not at all, but we'll go with that. But anyways, yeah, that's the main reason for wearing relaxed clothing, if you will, is because of that. There was a couple other things I wanted to touch on just, before I kind of give this thing the whole wrap up. One is, and I'm glad Robert's in here. If you guys have not, I know you're Impact Wrestling fans because you're watching this program right now. if you have not checked out Robert's program, what the fuck? Come on. Robert honestly does some of the best work in terms of production, editing, everything, giving you the facts, the top 10 list, reviewing all the pay-per-views, like everything, man. Anything you could possibly hope for in terms of watching Impact Wrestling, opinion, news, whatever, check out Robert from Robert Does Wrestling. You honestly, if you haven't yet, shame on you. And if you've been missing in action for a little bit, go back and catch up, because Robert does fantastic work. Also, in that same vein of fantastic works, yeah, thanks for the super. Well, thanks for everything you do, man. Like, that's the thing. Hey, I talk about a lot of people on this program, whether it's Andre, whether it's Robert, whether it's, the Wrestling Estate people, they've been really good to me, or the Pulse Podcast guys or whatever. I wouldn't talk about these guys if they weren't worth talking about. You know what I mean? If they didn't put out the effort that I appreciate as a fan watching these guys, and the just everything that they do for wrestling fans in general. If they weren't putting out quality programming, I wouldn't fucking talk about them. That's why I don't fucking talk about a lot of other goddamn people on this show. And some of them Robert knows, because we've talked about them in private. But man, there's some really good people that are associated with Impact Wrestling and the product. And then there are some who are, what the fuck? What the fuck? But I don't know how much I want to get into that right now. I don't really want this to be a whole fucking negative thing. And, Taxman cuts promos for fucking half an hour. I'm sure that would, as funny as it would be, especially for guys like Robert and Jimmy, I'm not sure how conducive it would be for anything else moving forward. So I don't know if I want to burn every bridge right now. I do, like I said, I'm going to be involved in a couple of projects, not projects, but a couple of other people's videos coming up in the near future. So look for me there. Although I do have to say, this youtube.com, youtube.com/C, I even forgot my goddamn fucking gimmick there for a second. youtube.com/C/six-sided podcast. This site is not going anywhere. No matter what happens with me, or if I do anything ever again or not, or whatever, this will always be up. At 6_podcast on Twitter will be there for the foreseeable future. I don't intend to get rid of that, because I honestly have such a fun time interacting with so many different people on there. It's always nice to even meet new people and everything else like that. So those two sources are not going anywhere. Also, as well, email at any time, sixsidepod@gmail.com. As I've said multiple times, there's no numbers, gimmicks, whatever in there. There's just straight numbers, sixsidepod@gmail.com. You can email me at any time. These ways of contacting me are not going to go anywhere. What will go away, I think, is the RSS feeds with Audio Boom, because there's no sense in me having an Audio Boom page if I'm not going to be producing a program. So I think that's going to go away relatively soon. So those are all going to be bye-bye. But yes, youtube.com/C/six-sided podcast will be forever the one that I will be updating anything that I do in terms of a program, which brings me to my next point. Robert Does Wrestling. What's the future hold for the Impact and Reverse series? About the same as this one, to be honest. I know it sounds funny. I have to have a drink here quick, because you guys are burning me out. It seems like it's such an easy thing, these 3, 4, 5 minute videos. They are and they're not. Like, it would take me, hours of research first to pick somebody that I wanted to spotlight, right? Then I go in and I research their wins and losses. I go through some of their biggest matches. I watch a bunch of their old matches to see which one I think is the best one to be able to talk about on the program. And then it's figuring out what makes their mark in Impact Wrestling history. So you'll notice that in each one of those videos, there's always something very specific that person or team has contributed to Impact Wrestling, whether it's Generation being having the worst wrestling or the worst fucking record in Impact Wrestling history for anybody who's done more than 20 matches, or if it's something like the highest winning percentage with Davey Richards. Just, I always want to find an interesting point or an interesting aspect that person holds or that team holds in Impact Wrestling that nobody else maybe ever will. And especially not if they're, if they haven't wrestled in that, NWA, TNA Impact, GFW Impact era, because they're just not a part of that in general. So it's hard to be able to do that the way that I want to be able to do it, to do all the research into it and to get that out in a timely fashion. Am I canceling that series? Long story short, no, I'm not. I do owe, especially Autobus Maximus asked for somebody, and it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember right now. It's a knockout. I'll probably fumble it out in the next couple of minutes, but he asked for one. I'm going to do that one. There's a couple others that I really want to do. I almost want to talk about them with you guys right now, but I don't at the same time because I feel like I don't know. I don't want to spoil the surprise. But TNA Impact in Reverse will continue. When I'm going to have new episodes, I can't tell you. Legitimately, I'm so busy at work. Work is a disaster. We'll just put it bluntly. And at home, with my kids growing up, now they're essentially almost 2.5 and 1.5. They're in swimming now. They're in different classes. Coordinating daycare and play dates and whatever. They're just 24 hours in a day, man. That fucking shit goes quick, and I'm goddamn not spending it sleeping. I'll tell you that much. But yes. I know I keep saying long story short, but long story short is TNA Impact in Reverse will continue in some capacity with episodes airing. It won't be every Wednesday because I can't keep that scheduled up, but they will continue in some limited capacity. But I do want to make sure that I get them right, and I appreciate that you guys enjoy watching them. And the response that I've gotten on those has been pretty good, so I want to keep those going for sure. What else did I want to touch on? See, it's funny because I thought, like, at work today, I was thinking like all day, like shit I wanted to talk about in the program. And then you start, getting into it, and it's just, some of it doesn't matter. And then some of it you're like, yeah, I don't want to get all, overly invested or emotional or whatever you want to say. Suffice it to say that this experience has been wonderful for me. All the guests that I've had on the program over the past years. Jimmy, I'm sorry, we can't get you to be the five times champ on the Six-Sided Podcast. So I do apologize for that. Jimmy, 3-time guest. Robert, a couple times himself. Jenna, a couple times. Even Violet, I just had on the program. This would have been. See, this is the other problem too that I've had. So I recorded the last episode with Violet and Jimmy like 2 weeks ago. And then it was like a week until I could actually find the time to do what little editing I had to do. It was honestly fucking nothing. And then do all the, production, upload it, put it on social media and whatever. Like, there's a lot of programs, not Robert, because he does everything himself. But there's a lot of programs where there's the guy producing it or girl producing it, and then or doing the program, I should say, and then they have a producer, or they have somebody who does their sound, or they have somebody who does their social media, or somebody who does all their uploading or does all of that stuff. And me, it's been me since day one. There's nobody else. There's no, Mr. Oz behind the curtain helping me out at all. It's always been me. So it's been very difficult to find time to do anything like get an episode up that was recorded a fucking week before. It's one of those things. And it sucks because I feel like I missed my mark a lot of times. One of them was the Jeff Hardy or the Matt Hardy thing that me and Robert talked about. And he flat out sent me a DM on Twitter. And he's like, dude, you missed your mark because, somebody else put out a video and it was, I would say not anywhere near the quality that ours was. And it got a ton of traffic and ours just didn't do anything. But that's the way it goes. Hey, sometimes you can capitalize on things and sometimes you can't. But I for lack of, or for my own fault, I've been unable to capitalize on a lot of things. So just one of those nitpicky whatever. Once again, I'm trying to be a perfectionist and totally imperfect in whatever scenario. So it just doesn't make sense. It makes sense to me, like in my own head, whatever's left in there. But to you guys, you're probably like, fuck, whatever the fuck he's talking about. So if there's nothing else in the chat, if there is, obviously throw it in there. But if there's nothing else, I do want to thank, once again, the Pulse Podcasting Network for getting me on there, getting me set up with all of their feeds. It directed a lot of traffic to me, and in turn, I directed a lot of traffic to them. So I wish them all the best in the foreseeable future. To Andre and everybody else at WrestlingWithWrestling.com, it was my pleasure to be able to contribute, although it was very sporadic at the end, any and all episodes of the Six-Sided Podcast to WrestlingWithWrestling.com. He took a chance on me when I was like three or four episodes in, and Andre took a chance on me, and I'm forever indebted to him. And like I said at the start of this, he's allowing me to keep my privileges with the website. So you will see things like whenever they come out, TNA Impact in Reverse, for example. If for some reason I'm doing a one-off episode, Six-Sided Podcast covering Impact Wrestling episodes is over. What I'm not saying never to is doing a one-off show on something. I don't know what something is. I don't know what would make me do it. I don't know what. I don't have that answer, but I would never be opposed to doing a one-off program with anybody. That also includes, I would never be opposed, obviously, to doing a guest spot on anybody's program. I've done a few of them in the past, and I have a couple lined up for the future. So, in general, though, I have to see what's being. Generally speaking, though, I know I'm losing my train of thought here. This whole thing has just been kind of a whirlwind for me, and I don't know what else there is to say, but yes, WrestlingWithWrestling.com will have any and all, Taxman related programming coming up in the near future. Jimmy says, Taxman, stay on Twitter, never leave, LOL. Got to make a trip to Manitoba one day. Jimmy, if you ever come to Manitoba, you have a place to stay. Like, no questions asked. You have a place to stay. I'll take care of you and whatever. And that goes for anybody else who, like, fuck, I'm sure he would never, but if Robert wants to goddamn up and play for Puerto Rico, you got a place to stay, man. And, Spock died in Star Trek 2 and came back for Star Trek 3. Yes, we're not killing the Taxman off. I'm trying to reiterate that part of it. The Taxman lives. I live. Me, myself, in my tankless shirt wonder and the guns. I live. But Six-Sided Podcast itself has to be, finished finito. I had mentioned to Jimmy on Twitter, this is kind of like, the Taxman. This is my Black Album moment. And if you're a Jay-Z fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But in terms of the Six-Sided Podcast programming, Mazer's coming over tonight. Yeah, sure. My wife's out of town right now anyway, so come on over. In terms of Six-Sided Podcast covering Impact Wrestling weekly episodes, that part is done. But once again, I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, and maybe I'm rambling, and if I am, I'm really sorry because I'm not good at this kind of stuff. I'm a lot better when I have a guest on to laugh with or at me or whatever the fuck. So, yeah. Once again, youtube.com/c/six-sided podcast. If you never hit that red subscribe button, now's your time. Why not? Last episode of this, but there will be some future content as well. Yes, Twitter is not going anywhere. 6_podcast is where you can find me on Twitter. Obviously, throw that little @ symbol in front of that one, and you'll find me on there. That's not going anywhere. I got way too many friends that I talk to on there to get rid of that. That would be a goddamn travesty. It's funny. I have my personal one. I never use it anymore. I'm always on the 6 podcast one just because it's enjoyable. And plus, on my personal one, I have some friends who are very political, not in the way that I think. We'll just put it like that, and I fucking don't want to get involved. So I just stay off my own goddamn personal Twitter. I just simply use the @6_podcast for anything. So that's not going anywhere. You guys can always find me on there. Robert Does Wrestling. Best of luck, Taxman. The door is always open to do a show. Hey, man, Robert, anytime, man. Just shoot me a DM whenever, right? And that goes for anybody else. I know I have something lined up with Trent and Kyle. I don't know when that's going to happen. We need schedules to come up or to meet in the middle somewhere. I still have to get on the S&M show. Michael Larkin, if you're listening, I got to get on your show. You promised me, man. You promised me. But and then there's a couple others that I can't talk about right now because I've been asked not to until they come out because they're kind of a surprise. But there will be a healthy dose of Taxman in the near future. Just, for myself hosting a show is, that one's going bye-bye. So I think that's all the blubbering I'm going to be doing right now. So for the last time, this is your boy, the Taxman. And what else can I say but take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everyone.